Hi, I'm Benton Stokes,
And I'm Elane O'Rourke.
and this is Cocktail Theology. Hi,
Hi.
how are you? I've only had one sip of the drink. Can you believe it?
You are just naturally, forget it. There's no way for you to end that sentence well. I was going to go effervescent, but we're not drinking something effervescent.
We aren't. We're drinking something yummy, though.
We are.
It is a black walnut old-fashioned.
Mm-hmm. It is quite nice. And it is in the cocktail book.
It is in the cocktail book, yes. It's rather simple, but it's really yummy. It has a brown sugar simple syrup,
Which is easy.
It has black walnut bitters by Fee Brothers that are really delicious. It has some grated orange peel, and then it's got 2 ounces of bullet bourbon.
That's it.
It's delicious.
It's very delicious. And I have to say, I'm going to give a little shout out to Fee Brothers because by and large, their bitters, there isn't one that I haven't loved.
No, I really like their bitters.
Which is kind of amazing. And the black walnut, I admit that I'm tempted to put it into almost every bourbon cocktail I've got.
Mm-hmm. It plays so nicely with bourbon. So yeah, it's delicious, and it's a really beautiful day. We're still getting into spring here, and it's nice.
It's nice. And what's interesting about that, notice the segue. Mm-hmm. What's interesting about that is our topic tonight is the way that depression, anxiety, mental health challenges intersect with spiritual challenges.
Yes.
And it reminds me, as you're saying how beautiful it is outside, that it can be beautiful and you can still feel like crap.
Right.
And so I just want to lift that up, that surroundings are important, our environment's important, and making it as healthy as we can for ourselves is fantastic. But if it's a beautiful sunny day and you have, in big air quotes, no reason to not feel good, and you don't feel good, that's really okay.
Absolutely. I wonder if taking a step back here might be useful to talk about what is depression, what does it feel like, what is anxiety. Now, I know that these are very individual experiences, but there are some common sort of symptoms, we could say, that people experience, generally speaking, if they are depressed and could really benefit from the kind of help you're talking about.
There's a common misconception that if you're depressed, you're sad, never find joy, can't get out of bed. That is false. Mm-hmm. Depression is not that simple. It's not a sprained ankle. Depression and anxiety both have to do more with, often for people, the way you're dealing with things rather than how you feel at the moment. Mm-hmm. So my very, very worst period of depression, really worst period of depression, I was hyper competent.
Wow.
I worked constantly. I was extremely fit, right? It's the extreme, right? Mm-hmm. Extremely fit. My students adored me mm-hmm. because I was present all mm-hmm. the time. Mm-hmm. And I was sleeping 2 hours a night. Mm. And it wasn't until I started to come out of it that I went, oh, wait, that's depression for me.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
For me,
right.
That was depression. Anxiety operates differently for people. But some of the things one might look at are things like, when you're feeling something, how extreme is it? When you feel disappointed or when you are critiquing something you've done, do you go to piling onto yourself? Do you give yourself messaging that re-emphasizes how awful you are or how much more you need to be? Things like that can help us pay attention to our own particular way of dealing with stuff. Mm-hmm. So for me at this point, having been on good medication for a long time now, praise God, and I mean literally, yes. Praise God. For me, most of the time, depression's under control. For me, I can feel a wave coming on. It's like somehow there's just this tidal wave that I can feel. It's like almost like I can hear it. I can feel it coming, and I'm like, okay. Okay. And actually, at that point, I start really working hard to tell myself good things about myself and about my life.
Yeah.
Right? Trying to change that mental language soon. And then it can come on, and I have to sort of say, okay, this will pass, but I'm going to feel awful for 36 hours. But that's with prayer, meditation, bodily care, and not just medicine, but, paying attention to those things, right?
Right.
So, and for other people, anxiety, for example, can make them jittery, nervous, sharp, right? As opposed to hiding in a corner.
Right.
You're looking for patterns of response that are extreme or uncontrolled. That's the place to start. Because whether it's habit, which is also, that's bodily as well as mental, whether it's habit or a mental pattern or mental illness, and I mean illness in the best sense of the word, you're not well, right? You're not at your wellest. Whether any of those things, that's one of the places to look for it. Are you spending a lot of money on random stuff? Also a sign of anxiety and depression. So paying attention. And honestly, if somebody you trust basically says, hey, you okay? You might want to ask yourself, am I okay? Instead of just automatically saying, of course I'm okay.
Yeah, that's really good advice, yeah. For me, depression sort of expressed itself as a fog. It was very difficult for me to make any kinds of decisions, even simple ones.
Yes.
I had a really difficult time discerning what I wanted, maybe to eat, or what I wanted to do with my free time, and I would just sit paralyzed, like I just couldn't make a choice and I couldn't move. And I think that for many people, depression is this confusion, this inability to move. And it's compounded when you say, I should be able to do this. Why can't I do this? It just makes it so much worse. And I think over time, I started to recognize what you're talking about. I started to recognize that I wasn't okay. This wasn't normal. And so at that point, I did reach out to my doctor, and I did ask him, what do you think that is? And he asked me some questions, had me fill out some questionnaire, and he said, you were dealing with some depression. Not sure how severe it is, but I want to talk to you about medication for that, and I want to see how you feel about therapy, and let's talk about all of that. And so we looked at all the options.
Yes.
And I went on a medication, and I was on it for, I don't know, a year and a half, 2 years, and it helped me tremendously.
Yes.
So much of this comes down to recognizing yourself, knowing when there's something off. And the thing is, the problem with the point of view that Jesus can fix everything
Or will.
is that you don't pay attention.
That's right.
Because you dismiss it. Like,
That's right.
well, God's got this.
That's right.
I don't have to worry about this.
That's right.
And that's just not true.
Right. Yeah, there's a huge difference between saying to yourself, God's got this, when basically what you need to do is to just hold on. And you know that. And you know that. Instead of diving into something that you can't fix, sometimes you just have to turn it over. It's like when you go to sleep, you have to trust that God's got it.
Yeah.
And by the way, if you can't go to sleep, even knowing God's got it, you might want to look at that.
Right.
Right. The other piece that you said that I just so want to lift up is if you are telling yourself, I should be, I should have, that in and of itself is a sign that something needs some assistance.
Yes. We were having a conversation about this topic yesterday. I kind of replayed in my head growing up and hearing that if you're having struggles with things like depression or anxiety, that really what you need to do is pray more. That depression and anxious feelings, insomnia, not sleeping, are all symptoms of not trusting God enough. And that we should lean more into our spiritual health to overcome our mental health challenges. I certainly understand, and I hope most of our listeners, all of our listeners do too, that that's crap. I've been a Christian and a follower of Jesus my whole life, and granted, there have been times when I haven't trusted as fully as I could have, but I've always known that God was there. I've always known that God had my back. And even when things weren't great, I knew that God would be there for me. And in some of those seasons when I knew God was there for me, I still struggled with depression. I still struggled with being able to sleep. I still struggled with doubts and questions and anxious feelings. Had nothing to do with whether God was there for me or not. And I was praying, and I was doing all the things, and I think spiritually I was pretty healthy all in all. But that didn't change the fact that I needed some help to get past the mental health challenges that I had at the time, and I still have to guard against these days. So I think for many, many Christians, they've been told that they just need to lean into their spiritual health. If they were more spiritually healthy, then they wouldn't be struggling with depression, and I just know that isn't true.
Can we just point out that there are 6 parts to who we are?
Yes.
There's the environment, which we talked about a minute ago. That's both, actual physical environment and your history, right? Mm-hmm. So how you grew up, all those kinds of things. So there's environment. There's your mind. There's your body, and that would include your brain. There's your will, the choosings you do. There's your spirit, which is, if you will, the energy flow that is you and God and yourself and by yourself and all those kinds of things. And then there's your soul, which is also always reaching out to God. It's the thing the part of us that wants to connect to God.
Yes.
Those are interdependent, but they are separable. So if you're having if I'm having mental health challenges, whether it is a message that I keep telling myself that is false, because that's a mental health challenge, whether it is the depression that I've dealt with my whole life, which is largely biochemical, and there's not a whole lot that we can do about it other than medicate it, whatever it is, that is connected to our spirituality.
It is.
But it is not the same thing.
Not at all.
And the idea that simply praying will either make you trust God more, or if you just pray hard enough, God will heal you of fill in the blank. Mm-hmm. Whether it's mental health challenges, whether it's homosexuality, whether it's whatever it is, if you just pray hard enough, is nonsense. And we can tell that from people who have had deep praying experiences their whole lives and have still died of cancer or have still whatever the thing is. Right? That blaming the victim thing, that blaming the sufferer for their own suffering is not only cruel, it's not God.
I have a very distant relative that I posted something on Instagram last year. It was a post about mental health, and I, in it, shared just a little bit of my story and my history with depression. And she wrote back to me, and again, this is a cousin that I never interact with. She wrote back to me this long message on Facebook about how she had just learned to trust Jesus better. She was on medication. She's not taking it anymore. She feels better than she ever has. Don't believe the lie that you have to be medicated to be healthy, blah, 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 blah. I was aghast and a little a little insulted that she just sort of barged into my life this way to share this. Now, I get, if you have something that works for you and you want to share that with the world, you go do that. But it just felt, particularly because I had been really vulnerable in this post, it felt really insensitive.
Yes.
To just come at me like that. And so I responded politely, but just said, I'm glad you're doing great. And I'm doing well too. And it's because I pay attention to my mental health. I'm in therapy. I notice when I need medication or when I need some help. And that's how God chooses to keep me healthy mentally.
Yes.
And it's by me paying attention to that and praying that God will give me insight into my own mental health.
Yes.
Because you would do that if it were a physical problem.
Absolutely.
You would trust a doctor to tell you if you have a disease or if you have aches and pains, and you would trust them to say, here's how you handle this, take 3 Tylenol and call me in the morning. But we don't seem to want to do that when it comes to our mental health as Christians, people of faith in general. Even my mother, who she grew up with a mother that had mental health struggles. And so when she herself started to recognize that she was having some mental health struggles, this was many years ago, she told her doctor, and I'm so glad and so happy for her that she did. And so she has been on medication for many years, and she pays attention to what's going on with her own mental health, and she will tell the doctor, I'm feeling this or I'm feeling that. They'll adjust her medication, they'll try something different. And because she's paid attention to that, she's a much healthier and happier person. And it allows her the capacity, really, to pursue her walk with Jesus in a way that is healthy and vigorous and honest. And when you are dealing with mental health struggles, you can't even really do that.
Right.
Just facing any facet of life can just become way too much.
That's right. No, that's absolutely right. I've got a couple of thoughts. One is that anybody who says, well, this worked for me and therefore you shouldn't, has no idea that that person's experience and your experience may be quite different. I mean, I'm to use the physical example. I'm glad her ankle was only sprained.
Right.
That's awesome. I'm so glad that she was healed of the sprained ankle.
Yeah.
On the other hand, if your ankle has been broken and healed improperly and you've got pins in it that are always going to be a little bit of a problem, I'm not going to say, you know what, you just need to walk on it. Just walk it off.
Yeah, just walk it off.
It's so insulting.
Yeah, it really is.
It's so insulting. The other thing that unfortunately I thought of is I thought of the Scientology thing of, no one needs medication, they just need Dianetics, right? And setting aside whether Scientology has any basis in anything other than L. Ron wanting to make money, setting that aside, the idea that any one thing will take care of everyone's problem, whatever the problem is, misses something intrinsic about who we are.
It does.
And we just aren't that similar. We are, in fact, unique. And there are similarities, right? There are some paths you can kind of start down and adjust. I love what you were saying about your mom, that adjusting thing, right? But the fact is we are unique. So we look for those things that work well or well-ish for many people. We try those and we go from there.
Yeah.
But going back to your praying thing, I think about when I have felt closest to God, closest to Jesus, has been at the depths of my despair. And I'm praying constantly. That didn't get me better. It got me through.
Yes.
And that sense that God was with me sometimes was not there, but I continued to seek it and to put myself in situations where I would be reminded of it. So I would say that prayer absolutely helps in those ways.
Oh, of course.
I would also say that prayer, because prayer is mind in a world that is both energy and matter, it's moving stuff that we don't have a way of dealing with, right?
Yes.
So I'm sure that prayer also has an effect on body, spirit, soul, all those other things. It is not in and of itself a cure-all, and it is not your illness, whatever the illness is not a measure of your faithfulness.
Yes,
it just
thank you.
Isn't.
Right.
It just isn't.
It isn't.
Evangelicals, particularly, and I would say the revival churches, period, lean towards praise rather than lament because they're terrified of lament. Because if one feels bad or has things that are sincerely worth expressing and dealing with, that means they've somehow failed. God has failed. So one will go into a church that has that bent, And if you're in a bad place, all the happy clappy can just make you feel like Lamentations didn't exist. The Psalms don't exist. The Proverbs don't exist. Like half the Bible is gone.
Right, and then you feel even more disconnected and like you don't belong. And that can actually harm your spiritual health because you're seeing, what these people are experiencing or pretending to experience and think, well, I'm not experiencing that, so something must be really wrong with me.
Well, and they would say, there is something really wrong with you. Mm-hmm. And so really leave here until you're okay.
Until you're okay.
Until you're okay. Just go pray it, and then you'll be okay.
Yeah.
I think we've said this in many ways, but I want to just say it straight out. If you're having spiritual things, if you want to talk things out or you want some guidance, we are great people to reach out to. There are also other spiritual directors. You don't have to come to us. But don't be shy to reach out. If you're having mental health issues, don't be shy to reach out. If you're having physical issues, don't be shy to reach out. All of these things matter.
They all matter.
And you matter so much to God, to us, and my prayer is to yourself, at least sometimes.
If any of this rings true for you, if you've experienced any of the things we're talking about, please reach out. We have resources. We have places we would point you to. If you have a friend that you can trust, that you can talk to about what you're feeling, please do that. Our mental health is so important. And no matter what you've been told by your church, your pastor, your Christian friends, your mom, or whoever, the truth is you have to tend to your own mental health the same way that you tend to your physical health and your spiritual health. All of these things require our attention and our diligence. So please take that step, reach out to somebody. You can always reach out to us. We are at Elane, E-L-A-N-E, at schoolforseekers.com. I am Benton at schoolforseekers.com. We're on the socials and we're all the places. But we would love to hear from you. If you have an idea for an episode, if you have something you'd like to hear us talk about, please share that with us, because we are making lots and lots of episodes and we like to talk about all kinds of things that interest you guys.
Please reach out. And if we're the only people you know that you can reach out to us. We're not going to take on something we can't handle, but we will help guide you in directions and give you resources. We've been through a lot between us.
We have.
And may be able to just walk with you a bit.
Yeah. We know some things. And we've learned some things.
And we've learned some things.
Awesome. Thanks, you guys, for listening. Tune in next week. Bye.